In 2023, Officer Cody Brackett pulled a man over who was traveling down a California highway with an open container of alcohol. The man was clearly drunk, but he insisted that Officer Brackett shouldn't charge or arrest him. The reason? He claimed that he wasn't the one driving. And technically he wasn't, because he was actually on the back of a horse. But the man was still charged, because in the state of California, along with many other states, you can still get a DUI while on horseback. Believe it or not, a horse counts as a vehicle, at least when you're riding a horse down the highway. And even though the horse was technically driving, or at least co-piloting, it was not charged because it had not been drinking. It might surprise you to find out that there are many things that count as vehicles, at least when you ride them while intoxicated. For example, lawnmowers. If you drink until you're over the legal limit and then get on a riding lawnmower, you can absolutely get a DUI. That's exactly what happened to a Marion County, Florida resident in August of 2020. It doesn't matter how slow it's moving or where you're riding it, it can get you a DUI. The same goes for an all-terrain vehicle, or ATV. The irony with an ATV is that they're not even designed to go out on the road. They're built for rugged terrain. But just because they're not on the road doesn't mean you can't get a DUI on one. That's exactly what happened to Blaine Schonk when he slammed his ATV into the side of an 18-wheeler in Illinois in late 2024. It doesn't matter how far off the road you operate a vehicle while drunk, you can still get a DUI. Farm and construction equipment also apply to that rule. People have gotten DUIs for driving tractors under the influence, along with cranes and forklifts. When they put that warning sticker that says "Do not operate heavy machinery," this is the heavy machinery they're talking about. Almost anything with wheels can get you a DUI if you're drunk enough and you cause enough trouble. Take Florida, for example. They've got a lot of dummies out there drinking and rolling around on all kinds of things. Bicycles, golf carts, skateboards, a pair of roller skates. A man in Tampa was arrested for driving under the influence while operating his motorized wheelchair. Did you know that you can even get a DUI for a vehicle that has no wheels and you aren't even inside of it? That's right, it's called drinking and droning. If you get plastered and then operate a drone in the state of New Jersey, it can cost you big. If you crash that drone or cause damage with it, you could be looking at up to 6 months in jail. America takes its alcohol-caused accidents very seriously. And honestly, it has to. Americans do a lot of drinking. The United States sells over $250 billion worth of alcohol every year. That's a big change from back in 1920, when the U.S. added an amendment to the Constitution prohibiting alcohol. It stayed that way for only 13 years, but there are actually still places in the U.S. that are functionally alcohol-free. 33 states have laws that allow individual counties to decide if they want to ban alcohol, and there are at least 4 states that currently ban the sale of alcohol on Sundays. That's what is called a blue law, which are laws created to prevent habits that churchgoers didn't like taking place on the Sabbath day. Many of them have been repealed, but some of them are still in place. But mostly, the business of alcohol is booming in the United States. There are cities who thrive on alcohol sales. New Orleans and Las Vegas are 2 of the biggest tourist destinations in the country, and both of them have some of the loosest alcohol laws in the U.S. The laws governing alcohol consumption are different depending on the U.S. state, and that's because there aren't that many federal alcohol laws. The 21st Amendment, which made alcohol legal again, grants each state the right to make their own alcohol laws. That's why there are different names for drinking and driving all over the country. Some places call it driving while intoxicated, others call it driving under the influence, or even operating a vehicle impaired. But they all mean basically the same thing. You drank and then you drove a vehicle, or a boat, or a jet ski, or a razor scooter, or a snowmobile, even a unicycle. Alcohol in America is a complicated legal situation. On one hand, Americans love to make money, and alcohol makes a lot of money. On the other hand, a lot of Americans are conservative and traditional, and they don't drink and they don't like the idea of it being so prevalent. That's why alcohol laws can sometimes be very confusing. Some things become illegal if you do them while drinking, for example, driving. Other things are already illegal, but you get punished more severely if you drink while doing them. For example, reckless driving. That's when you do erratic and dangerous driving, running stop signs and stoplights, swerving all over the road. But have you heard of a wet reckless? No, wet reckless is not the name of a crazy mafia hitman. It's how the law describes reckless driving accompanied by drinking. A wet reckless charge comes with more severe fines than normal reckless driving. Here are two examples of perfectly normal and legal activities that become illegal when alcohol is involved. In many states, it's perfectly legal to own a gun and to fire it in a controlled environment. But when alcohol is involved, that changes everything. Even if you don't injure someone when shooting a gun while drunk, the act of using it is illegal. It's even a second-degree misdemeanor in many states, and you can get up to 60 days in jail or 6 months of probation. And how about open containers? There is no law that says you can't have an open bottle of soda or water in your car, but over 40 states say you will be fined for having an open container of alcohol in your car, even if it's not yours and you didn't drink any of it. You can be completely sober and still get an open container charge. Here's a crazy comparison for charges related to alcohol consumption. If you get pulled over in your car at the beach and you have an open container of alcohol, you're probably looking at about a $100 fine if there's no evidence of other offenses. But if you're caught with an open container in Yosemite National Park, you're looking at a potential $5,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. What's the difference? Well, when you drink in a national park, you're catching a federal charge. There aren't many federal alcohol laws, but the ones that exist are serious. Airlines are covered by federal rules, which means their alcohol laws are strict. For example, a standard drunk and disorderly charge in public could get you an average of a $250 fine and up to 90 days in jail. But if you're on a plane and you get in trouble for drunken behavior, it could cost you as much as $35,000 and potentially 20 years in federal prison. It's not worth it. Just wait until you're on the ground to start drinking. Most alcohol laws come down to a matter of your location when you're drinking. For instance, it's illegal to be drunk on a train in Michigan. And to be clear, I don't mean as a conductor or train employee, I mean as a passenger. Michigan passed a law in 1913 that is still on the books. That was 110 years ago, back before alcohol prohibition was passed federally and then repealed, but the Michigan law is still around. Meanwhile, in New Orleans and Las Vegas, you can buy alcohol around the clock, 7 days a week. There are also no enforced closing times for bars in those towns. But even in those tourist destinations, there are some interesting location-based rules about drinking. In both towns, you can drink in public, but you can't drink out of a glass container. If you want to take your alcohol into the streets, you need to put it in a plastic or paper cup. Glass is against the law because it shatters and leaves dangerous pieces that can injure people and pop vehicle tires. Las Vegas also prohibits how close you can be to certain places while drinking. For instance, you have to be at least 1,000 feet away from schools, homeless shelters, drug and alcohol treatment centers, and hospitals. And same goes for churches and synagogues. I wonder what the law says about communion wine. But here's the most interesting rule. If you buy alcohol in a closed container, you have to go at least 1,000 feet away from where you bought it before you can drink it. So they can sell you the alcohol, but you can't drink it where you bought it. That's a head scratcher. The challenge of alcohol laws in the US is embracing balance and freedom for both sides. We got rid of alcohol prohibition because we decided that personal freedom was more important. But there are still rules about what age you have to be to drink and what punishments there are for irresponsible drinking, because we want to protect the public good for everyone. In the end, that's what it all boils down to. Let everyone have their freedom, but also keep everyone safe. So keep that in mind. If you're going to drink, stay out from behind the wheel, or off the horse, or away from the crane, or the drone, or the snowmobile. As a rule, if it's moving and you're in control of it, don't mess with it until you're completely sober, because the horse won't be the one getting the ticket, you will. And if you want more wild details about the oddest parts of the law, be sure to like and subscribe. That's it for this episode of No Way That's Legal. We'll see you next time.